And we're live. Just waiting for a few people to join us shortly.
Okay, cool. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If there is any oh, there's a few people here.
Yeah, it'll take a few minutes for it notifications to get out. People have to be joining us shortly.
Yes.
If you'd like to share this out, we'll be starting in about a minute.
Cool. And here it is in the Facebook chat. So I've got it. I'm watching us in the Facebook chat. So that's great. And on the YouTube, let's see, are we there?
All right, gentlemen, welcome to The Myth is Canada. Doug, do you want to take this away?
Yeah, I will do just that. Tonight on our roundtable event, regrettably, Mr. Hugh Riley had to bow out from tonight's event. He had an emergency come up in his life, and a positive emergency, not a negative one, by the way. And so he gave me a call earlier today and he bowed out. But we were nice enough to get, it was nice enough for Mr. Steve Roberts is joining us tonight. And Mr. Barry Prince says he's going to be joining us tonight a little bit later. And very possibly Critical Thinker will be on a little bit later. Duke Willis will be joining us. And Cody Haller, I see, is in the house. Mr. Cody Haller, how are you this evening?
Not bad. How about yourself?
Great. Absolutely crazy Sunday. But it's been a lot of fun. But tonight, it's kind of a serious topic. Unipolar world versus multipolar world. Ed is good enough to put up the definitions that we'll be using tonight on the conversation that we're having. And what I'm going to do is I'll take a few minutes here at the beginning of the roundtable. I'm going to bring in a couple of articles that I'll show you guys and show you the significance of what's going on. One has to do with climate change and the money behind it, and the other one is how they are discrediting the multipolar world. So I'm guessing we probably have. Oh, Duke, hello! You've come up. You're online as well. And I know that Duke is streaming outward as well tonight on his channel. He's going out both for YouTube and for his Facebook. So that's cool. So we're hopefully we'll get out to a lot of people tonight because this is a very important topic for us. The reason that it's so important, I believe it's so important, is that we have a unique opportunity here on the landmass known as Canada. We have the opportunity to seat de jure governments within what we know today as the provinces, but within our sovereign territories across this landmass. And in doing so, we have the most unique opportunity to change the world by joining a multipolar world. All of the resources within the ground belong to us, not to the federal authority and not to the provincial authorities. These belong to we, the people. And we must learn to govern ourselves and govern our resources. And the only way we can do that is to go through the Constitutional Convention, seat a de jure government, and join the multipolar world that's out there today. What makes up the multipolar world? Well, let's go back quickly. Let's go back to the definition so that people can get an idea of what I'm talking about here. Ed, can we bring those definitions back up, please, just for a moment? So a unipolar world has one hegemonic dominating state that holds a significant amount of power economically, militarily, and politically. And in the age that we live in, that would be the United States of America. Militarily, economically, they have the Federal Reserve note denominated as the US dollar, as the global reserve currency. And politically, It seems that even when Mr. Trump sneezes, it's front page news. So there's a good definition of unipolar. A multipolar world occurs when there are multiple states dominating and cooperating on the international stage. So we have China, Russia, the BRICS nations, the Monaco Accord nations, all working together to create the BRI, which is the Belt and Road Initiative, which goes across Eurasia, and it's to bring prosperity and equal rights for all of the individuals that are within the BRI. Xi Jinping, who is the Chinese president, based the BRI on a Sun Yat-sen book called Three Principles, and Sun Yat-sen based his book on Abraham Lincoln and the founding fathers of the United States, on their principles of protecting the unalienable rights of the individuals, a government for the people, by the people, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll get into that a little bit later in our conversation, but I did want to touch on that. And so that's the multipolar world that we're looking at. Now, I want to show people tonight in this chat, and we're going to start off, Ed, why don't we look at the climate change and the power behind it. If we can bring that article up, I've highlighted a bunch of stuff here within this article, and the gentleman that wrote the article, crap, I'm getting an echo, sorry. There we go, climate change. We're going to need to go right back to the top of that, please. Ed? Ed? Can you scroll back to the very top? Hello, Ed. There we go. So it says Climate and the Money Trail, and it was written by William Engdahl. Oh, this is what the problem is. There we go. Sorry, folks. William Engdahl has been writing as a investigative reporter for quite a number of years, and basically what he's done here in this article, and if we could scroll down a little bit, please, Ed. He's decided to name names under green finance. Remember ACO pushing the Green New Deal, and here we see that the BIS, or the Bank of International Settlements, or the central bank for all the central banks, is one of the leading proponents of the Green New Deal. If we could scroll down to the next paragraph below that, Ed. And we can see here some of the players from the BIS, and the BIS created the TCFD, okay? And so you get people like Michael Bloomberg. Oh, where do we know him from? Well, Michael Bloomberg, isn't he running for president of the United States? Isn't he the man that owns the Bloomberg screens, et cetera, et cetera? Then we see other companies like JP Morgan Chase, BlackRock, Barclays, HSBC, Swiss Re, China's ICBC Bank. Now, I want to stop here for just a minute. ICBC Bank is not a Chinese government bank. It's actually an independent bank. And it's owned by Chinese investors, and it was designed to come out from China and be a banking system within the Western banking world. It hasn't really taken off very well. As a matter of fact, they came into Canada with bells and whistles and opened quite a number of branches across Canada. They've closed about 2/3 of them now and are looking to basically close a number more because it's just not working for them. But they've decided to stay within the Western world and jump onto this climate change stuff. Tata Steel, ENI Oil, Dow Chemical, the big mining BNP Billington, and then, of course, Al Gore's Generation Investment LLC. And that his guy is David Blood with that. So if we scroll down a little bit further, we can also see that the Bank of England's Mark Carney, who was moved over to the BIS, is one of the architects, for lack of a better term, of the TCFD at the BIS. And he and Michael Bloomberg are working together. And then we scroll down a little bit further and we see highlighted in yellow, Goldman Sachs is a key actor. Wow, isn't that interesting? So Goldman Sachs is working on the Carbon Disclosure Project, and it is financed investors such as HSBC, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, American International Group, and State Street Corp, which is also a bank. And they're looking to raise funds off of securitized instruments created under the Green New Deal through CalPERS and through CalSTRS, which is the Teachers Retirement System and the California Public Employees Retirement System. It's about $600 billion that they're looking to get their hands on. Now, top-rated companies in the same index, okay, that they've created are Alphabet, which owns Google, Microsoft, ING Group, Diageo, Philips, and Danone, and conveniently, of course, Goldman Sachs. As we scroll down just a little bit further, now we have entered Greta, AOC, and the works. Now these guys are the propaganda machine, or the propaganda arm, to get people to force people into believing that somehow carbon dioxide is a poison gas and we need to rejigger our whole economic base. Well, as we scroll down just a little bit further, we see Al Gore is the chairman of Generation Investment Group. Gore's partner is ex-Goldman Sachs officer David Blood, as noted earlier, is a member of the BIS-created TCFD. Greta Thunberg, along with her 17-year-old U.S. climate friend Jamie Margolin, were both listed as special youth advisors and trustees. Interesting. And we'll keep going down a little bit. This, once again, I will have this article available for you up on the Myth is Canada Facebook page. I'll post it up there for you. And we can see as we scroll down a little bit further, the real agenda is where we want to go, Ed. So scroll to the real agenda is economic. Okay. And here it says here, the links between the world's largest financial groups, central banks, and global corporations to the current push for radical climate strategy to abandon the abiotic fuel economy in favor of a vague, unexplained green economy, it seems, is less about genuine concern to make our planet clean, healthy environment to live. Rather, it is an agenda intimately tied to the UN Agenda 2030 for a sustainable economy and to developing literally trillions of dollars in new wealth for the global banks and financial giants who constitute the real powers that be. As you scroll down a little bit further, a little bit more, please. So you can, that's right here is fine. So you can see here the members of the Breakthrough Energy include Virgin Air's Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Alibaba's Jack Ma, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, H.R. Prince Al, anyways, he's a CFO for Saudi Arabia. Bridgewater Associates, Ray Dalio, Julian Robertson of hedge fund giant Tiger Management, David Rubenstein from the Carlyle Group, George Soros, chairman of the Soros Fund, and Masawi Son, founder of SoftBank in Japan. Here's what's interesting. What we're not seeing in these names is anything east of Germany, except for maybe Jack Ma. Jack Ma, but he does a lot of business in the Western world. But these are Western banks and Western multinational corporations. You don't see any big Chinese corporations. You don't see any big Russian corporations or banks. There's no Russian banks involved in this. The only Chinese bank is ICBC Bank, and that's an independent bank. It isn't even part of the Chinese government. And what you were not seeing is Indian banks or Indian corporations here. This is really just for the Western banks to re-securitize themselves, because in the Western world, they have a 2.8 quadrillion. Yes, that's right, 2.8 quadrillion in notational value derivatives bubble. And they've run out of things to bet on. And so by switching the economy to a green economy, it opens the door to new securitization and new betting. Has absolutely nothing to do with the environment. BlackRock and Goldman Sachs, the UN, the World Bank, the Bank of England, and other central banks of the BIS line up behind the financing of so-called green agenda. Call it the Green New Deal or what? It is time to look behind the surface of the public climate activist campaigns to the actual agenda. We can scroll down, let's go right to the very last paragraph here. I want to read you something here. Yeah, sorry, that's it, right? No, go back. There we go. Back. There we go. Back in 2010, the head of the Working Group 3 of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, Dr. Olmar Edenhofer, told an interviewer, one must say clearly that we redistribute de facto the world's wealth by climate policy. One has to free oneself from the illusion that international climate policy is environmental policy. This has almost nothing to do with environmental policy anymore, with problems such as deforestation or ozone holes. Since then, the economic policy strategy has become far more developed. And that's exactly what this is about. It has absolutely nothing to do with the environment, but everything to do with saving their own lives through new securitization of financial instruments and to increase their derivatives bubble on what we're doing here. And the whole point of this article was to show you that this is all in the Western world. The Eastern world, China and Russia, the BRICS nations, the Monaco Accord nations, 162 Monaco Accord nations, they want nothing to do with this. And they have given lip service to the Paris Accord. They give lip service to the UN and their agenda, but they go ahead and do what they're doing. And the BRI, which is what China is developing as the new way to come across the Eurasian continent, and they're tying all of these, and they believe it's sovereign nationhood. So they're tying all of the sovereign nations together with infrastructure that is contrary to what the green agenda is all about. The green agenda is to de-industrialize the Western world. And at the end of the day, they're also looking to depopulate that same Western world. So those that are in the Western world can have nice big green spaces and not a lot of people. Sorry, I've got a cat tonight. Doesn't want to keep quiet. He keeps wanting attention. And so we could see how this unipolar side of the world is attempting to con us into believing that we need to tax the air that we breathe, that they need to tax the air we breathe. I have another article that I'd like to show you very quickly here, if I can get Ed to bring this up for a moment. And this is an article that was written by the Western investigative reporters. Okay, it's the Zimbabwe article, Ed. Thank you. We're still getting used to this. But I'll let Ed bring it up. It's a very interesting article because the headline, or the opening headline on the article, is China will use millions of Zimbabwe citizens to improve facial recognition accuracy. So supposedly China, the country, is going into Zimbabwe to develop facial recognition on black people in Zimbabwe. Because after all, China has a huge population of black people that they need to facially recognize. At least 5 or 6, and maybe 60 or 70, but you never know. They'll spend hundreds of millions of dollars developing this. Now, what's very interesting about this, if we scroll down a little bit further, I want to show you who wrote this. I should have, keep going. There we go, stop there. Nope, nope, too far. Thank you very much. Nope, there we go, stop there, thank you, perfect. It says, perhaps somewhat shocking, the FT. Now, the FT is the Financial Times. It is owned and operated by the Rothschilds. Reports that over the past few years, Chinese surveillance infrastructure has swept across regions from Angola to Zimbabwe. So if we could, you could see that the Financial Times has also reports a deal between China's facial recognition company, CloudWalk, and the government of Zimbabwe means the latter will send data on millions of African faces to the Chinese company to help train the technology. So this company called CloudWalk, that is a Chinese company, has come to Zimbabwe and made a deal with their government to deploy for free the cameras so that they may develop better technology, better software for facial recognition for Negroes. Interesting. And then you got to peel the onion. Let's peel the onion a little bit. Who is CloudWalk? CloudWalk is a company. It's a private company in China. Yes, it is a Chinese company. It's privately owned in China, and it has contracts with American companies to develop software for American companies to deploy this in the inner cities of the United States for facial recognition. Isn't that interesting? That if we keep scrolling down, I've highlighted a very interesting little paragraph here that I want to read to you. Keep going, it's highlighted in yellow, Ed. Stop there. It says, CloudWalk, okay, the CloudWalk deal is built on the back of a long-standing relationship with former Zimbabwe President Robert Mugabe's regime, seen by China as an ideological ally and Beijing, okay? So CloudWalk, what they're not telling you, is a private corporation, but it is a Chinese corporation that has made deals with American corporations to develop facial recognition software for these American corporations in Africa dealing with black people, so that the American corporations don't get the big old racist banner built across them, but they're going to deploy that in the inner cities in the United States. But they want to black eye China because, after all, China is doing the BRI, which is contrary to what the United States deep state doesn't want to have happen, which is freedom. They want to enslave the world. So how else can they do that but by putting articles like this out that are what we call fake news? Anyway, so I brought those two to your attention just to give you an opportunity to see what the unipolar world is doing to prevent the multipolar world from developing. It's not working. The United States has come up with an alternative to the BRI that they've rolled out, and it's called Blue Dot. Now, Blue Dot has been around for about almost 2 years now. And the BRI has had literally hundreds of projects sign up under it. And Blue Dot has come out to counter that. And in doing so, Blue Dot has, instead of coming into a country and making loans and making them long-term loans, Blue Dot comes in with short-term loans, onerous. Hang on just a minute. Let me just unplug this. Sorry, guys. It's driving me crazy. People don't understand. I'm online and I don't want to be disturbed. So they developed Blue Dot. Blue Dot comes in as an IMF cover with short-term loans, building the infrastructure and high interest rates and literally, if you don't pay, we will seize the infrastructure. That's Blue Dot. So far, they've had in almost 2 years absolutely nobody sign up for them. Because the way the BRI works is that it's long-term loans, and we build the infrastructure. It gets up and running. It starts making money. Now you can start paying the loans back. That's what the BRI is about. That's what multipolar world is about. It's about cooperation between sovereign entities. So let's have the floor open up, guys. How about your 2 cents?
I had to bring money.
Sorry, Duke.
Oh, damn. You're supposed to let me know these things ahead of time. I didn't bring any loose change.
Wasn't that a movie?
I got a toonie in my pocket. Can I talk for the next hour?
Sure, go for it. You're going to do it.
No, people are tired of hearing me. Between radio shows and live shows, this is my 3rd broadcast so far today. What's Cody got to say? I really want to hear what Cody has to say because he's kind of like the new kid on the block here in this arena. No offense, Cody, but like the sort of things Doug is talking about that's kind of a new area for you to delve into. World finance and world politics. It's a lot more than what you've been dealing with out west, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's some of the stuff is a little out of my realm, definitely. But as far as facial recognition and stuff like that, I know a little bit. I find it to be pretty terrifying myself. You know, it's Big Brother.
Yeah, it's George Orwell kind of stuff.
Orwellian technology, yeah. I mean, and you think about how many places, public places, have cameras in this day and age, right?
Huh. Just drive down the street. Every intersection has a camera on top of the traffic light. You can see them on street lights in between intersections. They're everywhere.
Not only that, they're in our public schools. They're in shopping centers. Like, there basically isn't a building you can go in that does not have cameras, right? That might not be part of public infrastructure, but I'm sure in places like China where they're utilizing the social credit system, it's integrated through absolutely everything, right?
Yep. They even, I don't know about right now, but a few years ago, there was a nightclub in Niagara Falls. I'm going back a few, like 10 years or so, back when the new, what we locals called the new Casino Niagara overlooking the falls. When it opened up, there was a couple of nightclubs owned by American bar owners from Niagara Falls, New York, who moved into Niagara Falls, Canada. These clubs were notorious for fights, gun battles. There was 2 of them right down by the casino. The police went so far as putting cameras right into the ladies' washroom. They had signs on the door. This is not a private washroom. Every angle is under camera. Honest, they had signs on the doors of the bathrooms. If a lady went to the bathroom, she had to be ready to be doing a porn movie because the cops were sitting there at 68 Church Street watching.
Yeah,
that's Big Brother. And
okay, guys, I gotta intervene here. You kind of missed the point.
Yeah, we got off topic.
It's not about the camera deployment. It's not well. It can be about Big Brother, but it is about the multipolar world and the unipolar world. And the reason I used that software article was I wanted to show you how they are discrediting China by misinforming you that yes, it's a Chinese company. No, it's not a Chinese government company. And yes, it is under contract with American companies to develop software that can be deployed in the inner cities of the United States, Chicago, Washington, D.C., et cetera, and they needed to refine how they can see black people. That's what the software is being developed for. That's why it's being put out in Zimbabwe and Angola, etc., because the high population of black people, because they certainly couldn't develop black people facial recognition software in Beijing. They would spend a lot of time looking at a lot of Chinese people and very, very, very few black people. So why would the Chinese government be developing software for China that is facial recognition for black people? They wouldn't.
So who are they developing it for?
The United States. Companies have contracted with that company from the United States, and the reason that the companies in the United States are not doing it themselves is because they don't want to be branded as racist.
Even though they are.
Even though they are.
Wait, did I say that? Bad, Dookie.
Well, here's the thing. It's a way to discredit what China's doing. China's bad. Oh, evil China. Oh no, we can't, they're going to take over the world if we're not careful. And it's a bunch of crap. China's doing business. They do business with everybody. And so great, Chinese company has created CloudWalk is a created Chinese company. They develop facial recognition software because there's a market for it. If there wasn't a market for it, they wouldn't be developing. You know that as well as I do. And is it good? No. I don't like the idea of facial recognition software. I do not like the idea of CCTV cameras everywhere. I think that's an infringement upon our rights. But that's not for this conversation. We're talking about multipolar versus unipolar and what's going on in the Eastern world to what's coming in the Western world. And we can see, because we live here, what they're doing. I mean, look what happened in Edmonton when Miss Thunberg, gave her little speech there, and they put a big, beautiful mural up on the wall. And the next morning, it was completely defaced. So who's listening to the people? Nobody. The politicians don't give a rat's butt what you say over here. They don't care.
What correlations do you think are directly attributed, like when we're talking about the climate push? Obviously we're aware that it's more of an economic push to make new policies and to charge the people, implement taxation, but how would you relate that directly to unipolarism or multipolarism?
Well, like there, Cody, and that's why I brought that particular article up, was because it shows the various banking institutions and hedge funds, multinational corporations, that how do they make their living? Well, they make their living off of securitization. The bank industry makes its living off of creating bonds and then selling those bonds and then putting derivatives on those bonds or bets on those bonds. Well, they've run out of things to securitize. This world is now over securitized. I said at the beginning, it's 2.8 quadrillion. That's 2.8 times 1,000 trillion. Now, let me give you a quick little thumbnail sketch. The world today has a GDP of around $60 trillion, okay, globally. So 2.8 is 2.8 times 1,000 trillion. Get your head around that. See, they need to expand the debt. That's how they continue to live, by expanding the debt. So when they run out of things to securitize and expand the debt, then they have to create new things to securitize. And what a great thing to securitize is the air we breathe. That's what they're securitizing now, CO2, the nasty poisonous molecule. We know it as the gas of life, but they know it as carbon dioxide. Oh, it's horrible. It's going to kill us all. Well, yeah, if you're in a room with carbon dioxide, you're going to die of suffocation.
Doug, they've been securitizing the war on terrorism for the last 20 years also.
Exactly, through the MIC, through the military industrial complex. And I kind of chuckle. What was his name? Barry Obama. He decided that he was going to.
Barry Soetoro.
Yes.
Well, they know him as Obama, but I call him Barry and his friend and his husband Michael.
Just ask Stone Rivers. Oh wait,
No, wait. We'll hold a seance. We'll hold a seance. Well, they decided to put sanctions on Russia. Okay, and then Trump, in his infinite wisdom, decided to continue the sanctions. And Russia today, coming out by the end of the year, they were talking about their GDP, and the Americans were like, "Oh, our GDP went up 1.2% this year." Well, Russia, under all these sanctions and de-dollarization, is now going to hit 6% GDP increase. 6% increase on their GDP under these sanctions. It's amazing. What are they doing that we're not doing? Maybe, and I said this on Barry's show earlier, I said, maybe we need Trudeau to go down to the States and give good old Mr. Trump a slap around the face and tell him to sanction Canada, because we need some help up here. Maybe sanctions will help us. Maybe it'll increase our economy.
If you think
it certainly
about
did for Russia.
If you looked at economies right now, the United States is like Mark Spitz racing from one end of the swimming pool to the other, and Russia is wearing a one-piece garbage bag with two boat anchors tied to its ankle, and it's still beating Mark Spitz to the other end of the swimming pool. Like, literally, the whole financial world has been geared against Russia for decades, and they are thriving despite it. And they've been, for outward appearances, they've been a unipolar environment, but inwardly they're not. They've always had, as many of my videos point out, Russia's had dealings with countries in South America, all of Eastern Europe, Cambodia, Laos, Central, what would we call it, Doug? Central Asia? Would that be a correct geographic term?
Yeah, that works. Yeah, we got
South Asia, yeah.
Well, Iran, Syria.
Well, that's Middle East.
It's Iran is more Asia than it borders on the Middle East. The Middle East would be the Arabian Peninsula, Syria,
okay,
et cetera, Turkey.
But yeah, Russia was in with all of those, so they weren't. Even though they appeared unipolar, they weren't. They were behind the scenes. They were multipolar. They had their hands in the cookie jar all over the place. So, but again, back to my point, all the restrictions and sanctions that Doug talked about, getting Trump to apply to Canada, whatever Russia's doing, it's doing just great, even with all these negative things, these boat anchors tied around its ankle.
Well, Gazprom, which is one of the largest, if not the largest oil company in the world, announced last month that they're no longer accepting US dollars in trade. That they will accept euro, and they will accept ruble, and they will accept yuan, but they will not accept US dollars.
I'm sorry. Who was that?
Yeah, Gazprom, Stephen.
Okay.
They came out last month and they said they were no longer writing new contracts in US dollars. Look at what happened
just a few years ago. Was it 5 or 6 years ago? And in Libya, he said he was going to only deal in gold only. He was going to get off the petrodollar.
Yeah, gold-backed dinar.
Sorry?
He was making a gold-backed dinar.
Yes. And they swiftly took him out.
Well, and here's the thing. Poor old Mr. Gaddafi didn't have the S-400 missile system, didn't have the Patriot killer, the Sunburn missiles, the Satan missile that comes over the Antarctic.
Or the super Sunburn that can take out an aircraft carrier with one strike. Put it in the bottom of the ocean with one strike. Yeah, Gaddafi didn't have a whole lot of things that China has.
Well, and so the China is de-dollarizing. The Russia is de-dollarizing, and there's really nothing that the Americans can do to them. I mean, if you remember, what was it called? The Cook. It was in the Black Sea about 5 years ago. where an Su-24 flew over it, did a barrel roll over it, and they couldn't see him. The Su-24 had a little black box that they paid like 50 grand down at Radio Shack for these parts, and they turned off the Aegis system, completely turned it off. And the Su-24 did 12 passes over the bow and stern of the Cook in the Black Sea, doing barrel rolls, doing low flies, and all the sailors were on deck watching it, but their radar systems couldn't see any of it. He did a barrel roll across the bow and flipped the switch, and everything lit back up again as he took off. It was called the Donald Cook. When it pulled into port at, what was on the Black Sea anyways, they had a port there they pulled into. They had 11 career officers turn in their papers and leave the ship for fear that they would be killed at sea if there was ever a war with Russia.
Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Think about that.
So
The
it's one
best defense in the world, what we've been led to believe is the most powerful military force in the world, the unipolar military force, is blind to their enemies.
Yeah.
Well, it's not so much that they're blind to their enemies, Duke. It's the illusion that the United States has enemies.
Yes.
It's the illusion that Russia is the bad guy, or North Korea, or China. But the facts are undoubtedly 100% Western interest and American interest started the Bolshevik Revolution. They started and funded the Communist Revolution. They started and funded North Korea's revolution, Vietnam's revolution, Afghanistan's revolution. Just pick any war over the last 100 plus years, probably more than 100 plus years. I believe it was.
Didn't Rothschild back Bonaparte and
Yes.
and Wellington both?
Yes, he
And
did.
the Nazi regime as well, yeah. Henry
The
Ford
Nazi
and
regimes. Yes.
Bush. And,
So yeah, we are talking over 200 plus years.
Yeah, I know. I also try and keep things relevant to what our audience is seeing and can relate to in today's terms, right? That's all.
But get this, Duke. Each and every time Rothschild interest or American interest fund a revolution, each and every time they somehow come out with the narrative that, oh, our little flunky that we funded, he stabbed us in the back and went rogue. Every time. I don't know about you guys, but how many times do you have to be lied to? Once, twice. Okay, I'll give you a pass, but I'm just picking a number out of my rear end. 17,342 times. Do you have to be lied to that many times? That was a rhetorical question, guys. You don't even have to answer that.
I'm not gonna.
No, it's definitely an interesting time in history, though, especially for the United States. Whereas you take a look through the past several world wars, World War I, World War II, they always came out as a strong economic and military force at the end of it. And it seems that that strength seems to be waning in this day and age, and the redistribution of wealth and like monetarily, their system is collapsing while other places in the world are flourishing. And militarily, as you guys were just speaking about, it seems that they're losing their control in that aspect as well. So it's an auspicious time for the rest of the planet, right?
Well, and the funny thing that happened with the American military, or the military-industrial complex, is they conned we, the people in the United States, through taxpayer funding to fund this $800 toilet seats, $1,200 hammers, the F-35 flying school bus, that has to come out of Mach in order to open its weapons space doors. Leaves a heat signature so hot that you don't even need radar to do it. You can see it with the naked eye. Boondoggles, where Russia, who didn't have a lot of money, 1992, their whole thing collapsed, so they didn't have a lot of money. They spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars developing weaponry that is hypermach weaponry, stuff that the American and the NATO and the European radars can't even see. There's something called the, oh God, it's a small little missile that sits on the back of a Jeep. And it's known to NATO as the Patriot killer, because the only way the Patriot missile defense system can see it coming is if they open the door on the trailer of the radar systems and look out and watch it hit them. Because it comes in at Mach 7. So their radar systems can't even see this thing. And so with Russia, they don't have these huge budgets. China doesn't have, China's got 1.2 billion people, and yet their budget for their military is not even 1/8 of the US budget. As a matter of fact, they're number 2 in the world behind the US now at $60 billion. Where the US is, what is it now, 1.2 trillion that Mr. Trump spent in the military industrial complex this year?
So I don't know about, that's what it was in 2018, just over 1.1.
Oh, okay. But if they take look at San Francisco. If you took $20 billion and put it into San Francisco and said, put your infrastructure together and get people off the streets, get the homeless off the streets, here's $20 billion to do that.
It wouldn't even take that much, Doug. I think.
No, but I'm just saying.
I think it's been estimated. I think it's been estimated it would take $39 billion to feed the world's hungry.
Exactly.
At the homeland.
So well, corporate farming. This is another one. Oh my God. Here in the West, corporate farming is done through subsidies. So they subsidize corn so that you can burn it in your car as fuel. Ethanol is like the worst fuel for internal combustion engines you can come up with. And then they blend it with actual gasoline so it burns better. But now you're turning food crop into energy. Why? Well, there's carbon dioxide and it's bad. Global warming is going to kill us all. Anyway, but they also subsidize dairy. They subsidize chickens. They subsidize pork. They subsidize wheat and all. They have warehouses in Canada and in the US full of butter, full of cheese that sits there, and its reason it's sitting there is it's waiting to be destroyed. Because if they put it into the market, cheese would become, or butter would become $1 a pound. And it would take away the profit margin of the corporations that are making money off.
Just like the beers and the diamonds.
Correct.
Yep. I did actually.
We're just as bad here in Canada, by the way, in subsidizing the farms.
Oh, we're way worse, Doug. We have our marketing boards that not only control how much product goes to market, but what the price of that product is when it gets to market. I did 2 video exposés about a dairy here in Niagara. I know from personal experience with friends who were dairy farmers, their cows might produce 100 gallons of milk a day, but if their dairy quota with the milk marketing board is only 50 gallons a day, they have to dump the other 50 gallons. It just goes into a big pond beside his barn. If that milk was being put into the market, we'd be paying $1 for 3 liters of milk, like the plastic bags that we get now. We'd be paying $1 instead of $5 to $6 for a bag of milk. Because what we have on our shelves is only half of what the farmers produce. And if all that product, that supply, was put on the market, there'd be no demand. There'd be so much milk getting thrown away because it wasn't being bought that milk would be worth nothing. The marketing board, the suits and ties that regulate it, not the farmers, the suits and ties at the marketing board wouldn't get their percentage. That's what it's all about.
And here's the thing: I'm a very large proponent of laissez-faire markets and allowing the market to adjust. So if you're going to dump milk into the market where it comes down to $1 a gallon, maybe the farmers will adjust to that and not produce as much milk. They'll produce enough milk for the market to absorb, but that's all they'll produce. They won't produce, because the market, we don't need milk. The dairy farmers produce as much as they can to make as little, because they're getting paid peanuts for their stuff through the marketing boards. The markup that the farmers don't get, like I was reading an article a couple of years ago now, I guess, where a farmer, a rancher in Alberta, was getting $4 a pound for his beef. And it didn't matter what cut it was on the hoof, $4 a pound on the hoof. And he'd go to the supermarket and he'd buy a roast for $35 for a 2-pound roast. He's like, oh my God, how is that possible? Well, the markup doesn't go to the producer where it should go. So if the farmer could get $6 direct to a butcher, that then pass that on to the people who would pay maybe double that, $12 for a beautiful roast rather than $35 in fiat currency. What happened to Cody?
I don't know. He's disappeared.
Yes.
Again, you're into, not necessarily in the beef industry, not necessarily a marketing board, but you're into an ongoing corporate auction environment where corporate bidders come in and they'll look at a farmer's herd and they'll say, okay, bring those 100 head into the auction. And then it sits at the auction and they're all the same buyers who go and sit and have breakfast together every day before the auction opens. They're all the same buyers who do the Secret Santa gift swap at Christmas. They're all buddies. They all agree on what price they're going to pay. And okay, you can have that 10 head because we don't need them. We'll buy something cheaper. That's how it works, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a free market.
Well, and that's the problem we have here in the Western world. And we need to take the power back and put it into our own hands. If we have any expectations for the future of our children or our grandchildren to have those free markets, then we have to do the change ourselves. And we have to get on this, we have to look at this on a global stage. If we got to start local, but we'll build that out and with in mind the global stage that we can join. And it's there, it's available to us. And that's called the multipolar world. And that's the whole idea of this discussion tonight. This roundtable was to look at what the unipolar world has been doing to us and how it's really hamstrung us, our markets, and we're forced to use a currency that the banksters create out of thin air. And we're forced to use it. By no stretch of the imagination do you have a choice. If you decide that you want to produce your own fiat currency to compete against their fiat currency, they'll kick down your door and they'll shoot you.
And then put a gun in your hand so it looks like you were armed.
There you go.
Yeah, it's interesting how you guys were speaking about how China and Russia and all of these countries have the ability to have further advanced military technology. I mean, you take a look throughout history at times where there's been great revolutions in countries and they were suffering economically, right? But as soon as they made certain changes within their economic structure, their banking structure, they actually had a flourishing period of time, right? Where they boomed economically. Like you guys were pointing out, the countries that spend far less on their military have advanced technology. Now, is that because of the way they have their finances structured? Is that because they are subsidizing technological advancement? Is that, you know.
Well, but Cody, you might not realize though, but at least again over the last 150 to 200 years, the power structure itself has created these strifes in all these other countries. Ireland in the 1840s was not a famine; it was a genocide.
Yeah.
China was the same way over the 1840s through the 1870s. They were forced so much. They bribed all of government in China to pretty much get a lot of people addicted to opium. They had control. Great Britain had control of. Well, that's weird looking at myself. Sorry, guys. I don't normally do that, but anyways, a lot of these things are controlled and concerted efforts by the power structure itself.
Yeah, I think that can be evidenced throughout the history of several countries, like even Africa, and take a look at how many natural resources they have, and then a look at their economic history shows, why a lot of the royalties and their resources and stuff were traded off into corporations, were seized by the British monarchy, and et cetera, right? It's the same type of pattern. It's cyclical throughout a lot of history.
Do you take a break at the hour, Doug?
I'm sorry?
Do you take a break at the hour?
We can, if you guys want to, take a break. Go ahead, everybody have a pee.
I
We'll
would
all mute mics and take 5 and then come back. Renewed.
Well,
That
I'm
would be
not.
fine with
I'm
me.
not going anywhere. I'm just going to sit here.
I'll be right back.
There's Ed. We can't hear you, Ed.
I got no songs to play. I got no commercials to play. Still going. I'll take Steven out for a second. There we go. And it's all yours again. Keep going. Hope everyone's enjoying the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's not with what Cody was saying here. Russia was kind of forced into spending little money, but they spent it very methodically and on very specific ways. They looked at their enemy, or what was deemed to be their enemy, under the USSR, because this was started back then. It was started the hypermach technology that we see today was started back in the 70s under the USSR, because the USSR knew that they needed to develop alternate technologies to what the United States and NATO were doing, and it took a long time to develop it properly. When in '92, after it collapsed, they were able to, well, not right away, it took several years to clear away the mess that was left in Russia, and then to redeploy money back into that technology and give it life again. That they didn't have a lot. It took a long time. Even to this day, the Russian economy still isn't anywhere near what our economy is. It is growing, but it's not anywhere near what we do, even here in Canada. And so they're still on limited budgets, but they're smart enough to understand that with limited budgets, then we have to develop what we can develop within that realm. It might take us a little bit longer, but when we finally get there, hallelujah. But if you watch Putin on the global stage, and he's constantly, not this year, but he used to say, our friends in the West, our friends in the West. He got fed up saying that because he kept getting kicked in the teeth. You know what? Oh gosh, there's a funny one. So how do you circumcise a Muslim? According to Putin, how do you circumcise a Muslim?
Kick an American in the kick Trudeau in the chin. There's one thing
According
I
to
just
Putin,
want.
that's his joke, not mine.
There's one thing I just want to address here, because we've had a couple of comments about, and you touched on it, Doug, about how Russia, and Cody mentioned it too, about how Russia is able to so detailed develop their military forces and their technology, and yet here in North America, using the US as an example, they're spending 10 times as much money and not getting near as much for their dollar. Why is that? Because in Russia, they don't have to answer to the private sector who are looking at every penny that's being spent. In Russia, they don't have to hide $800,000 for a toilet seat on the space shuttle, because the toilet seat really only cost $35, but they needed that other $750,000 to pay off a dignitary in a country somewhere that's being a spy for them. Russia just went and paid the spy, and none of their citizens questioned money being spent. So they didn't have to create all this fake bookkeeping to pacify the public inquiry and inquisition of, what are you doing with our money? Nobody in Russia asked Putin, what are you doing with our money? Putin says, I'm doing whatever the hell the country needs me to do. That doesn't happen in North America, in the United States. Nancy Pelosi wouldn't let it happen. So that's why the US has to spend all this money doing things, because they use their publicly visible projects, over budget them, and then siphon money off to fund their non-public projects that nobody knows about. The other factor you have to calculate in is corporate greed in the supply chain management system that brings all the parts to the space shuttle, the International Space Station. Do you think IBM and all these other companies, DuPont, that makes all the special plastic seals for the space shuttle and the rockets that launch it and all the rest of it, do you think they're not going to go, government contract, everything costs triple? Of course they do. Do you think they get away with that in Russia? No. That's why things don't get done here. Greed. Plain and simple.
Well, and it's a simple fix for the United States and for Canada. We just eliminate corporate personhood.
Bingo.
It came into existence in 1886 at the, what was the trial? Let's see, Southern Pacific Railway versus Santa Clara County. That was it.
Yep.
And by the way, people in Alberta, you were the last people on planet Earth to rescind or to accept corporate personhood. You did that in 1931. Isn't that funny? We need to put that in our constitutions, making it illegal for corporate personhood.
And corporate personhood is why our Charter of Rights and Freedoms continuously refers to persons and the person and or persons. It doesn't refer to a man and a woman. It never calls Canadians a man and a woman. It uses the word person. Why? Because there is corporate personhood, which means a corporation can be treated on some issues the same as a human. That's how we, the people of Canada, get trapped and sucked into the corporate identity that you heard Christopher talking about on my show just 2 nights ago, the all caps name. That's one of the ways they do it. It's another stroke of the paintbrush that paints you into that corner.
But here's the thing with corporate personhood and what it did in 1886. It took corporations that were being issued their charter from the state on a limited basis, and the charter that if you took a charter from the state as the owner of that corporation or director of that corporation or a stockholder of that corporation, you were 100% responsible for all damages that corporation did. And so what corporate personhood did was take that away. It eliminated the responsibilities of the directors and the stockholders from the company, or from the company's bad doings, I should say. And so today we have what they call limited liability companies. And when you charter a company today, the company itself is got the liability. You don't. As a director of the company, as the owner of the company, you get to walk away. If you decide to go ahead and pollute a stream that caused fish stocks to die downriver on the spawning grounds, well, your company could be sued, and then all you do is bankrupted. Well, and a good example of that, what just happened in the United States, was the company that created OxyContin. They were sued into bankruptcy. Did the owners of the company give up billions of dollars? Oh, hell no. They maintained their wealth, but their company, they threw it off the cliff and bankrupted because the liability was held at the company, and that's what corporate personhood did. If we didn't have corporate personhood, the owners of that company and their stockholders would be 100% liable to all the people they killed, maimed, and families they destroyed. So those people got to walk away.
That's actually what used to happen back in the middle to the late 19th century.
That's what I was saying, 1886, corporate personhood.
Snake oil salesmen would go around selling whatever concoction they had.
Poison often, yeah.
Well, it was John D. Rockefeller's father was a snake oil salesman, and a lot of things he sold did harm a lot of people, and he and others, not so much he, but a lot of others did get into a lot of trouble until they made the corporation a true entity.
And they did that under personhood, corporate personhood.
The name of the case was the Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railway, and it was argued in the court by the lawyer for Southern Pacific Railway that he wanted to bring corporate personhood into this, and the judge said, "You're not going to bring an argument of corporate personhood because we all know that corporations are persons anyways." And then the court reporter put that into the head notes. It was in the head notes. It wasn't part of the case. And then in Massachusetts, 2 years later, a lawyer brought up that the case of Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railway, they had it was part of the decision that corporations were persons. And the judge in Massachusetts didn't read the case. It was only in the head notes. The lawyer lied. And that's when it became precedent. It was, and that's when corporate personhood went on the book.
The lawyer in Massachusetts lied about the case from California. The judge didn't do his research and just took the lie as the truth and made a ruling. And that ruling set the precedent. It opened the door for corporate personhood.
Duke.
There you go. Yes.
I invented a joke a few years ago. Maybe I'd like to share it. Everybody might get a kick out of it. Do you know why they're called lawyers? Don't you?
Go ahead.
Because liars was taken.
I like that one.
You know what? Oh, I knew this girl who was she was a bartender, and she told me this joke. She says, "You know the difference between a room full of drunk pigs and a room full of drunk lawyers? Well, pigs don't act like lawyers when they get drunk."
That's good. I like that.
What's the difference? What's the difference between a catfish and a lawyer? One's a scum-sucking bottom dweller, and the other one's a fish. And I heard that joke in an elevator full of lawyers in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I won't tell you who told it to me, but he wasn't a lawyer.
Well, I know for the most part, people don't actually know. I'm sure it has to be the same up in Canada, but here in America, there is a law on the federal books, actual law that says a corporation cannot hold an oath of office. So, put that one in your pipe and smoke it and think about it for a while. Think about the fraud.
Absolutely. And even your Supreme Court down there, what was it, a couple of years ago? Can't remember now the name of the case that allowed corporations to donate to political parties
Sure.
as much as they wanted and advertise for them. I mean, talk about bribery coming right out. Now the courts are approving bribery rather than leaving it in back rooms. They just made it mainstream. I mean, this world that we're living in the Western side is collapsing. And we know that simply by looking at the article that I showed you earlier tonight by Engeldahl, and how they're looking for new things to securitize because their whole system is going the way of the dodo bird. And if they can't get there within the next few months or sooner, they're going to, all of their wealth, all of their power will go away. It's like what happened in 1931 when the Statute of Westminster was put out for us, the people, and the Dominion of Canada said nothing changed because their wealth was tied to Section 109. And without Section 109, they had nothing. All of the wealth, all of their power that they worked for many, many years would go away. And of course, they're screaming, nothing changed, when absolutely it did. And so today we're going to see the same thing happening here in the economic world. They have over-securitized and overplayed their hand like a drunken poker player goes all in with a 7-2 facing 3 aces up and a whole card that you know damn well the guy across the table from you has the 4th ace. Yet you go all in anyway. That was a Duke metaphor because Duke's good at those.
Well, yeah. And you know what, Doug? I want to kind of give people another little metaphor here. You've been throwing out the word securitize. And I think I need to put on my mutual funds advisor hat and sort of put that word into terms that people can understand. By securitize, think about going to renew your mortgage on your home, okay? You need collateral, you need security. You go to the bank and you say, look, I've already paid $100,000 off. I want to borrow back 50 of that, and here, we'll put up my house again as collateral, as security. Well, what the bankers and the financial world have done is that they've gone and refinanced the mortgage on their house. Then they've gone and said, well, how much of a mortgage can I get on the flowers in my garden? Okay, I want some security on the grass in my backyard. What is each blade of grass worth as security for a loan? And this is how they have remortgaged. They've increased the amount of debt on the securities that they have to the point where they've got to go out and find more securities. They don't have the money to go and buy a new house and use that as collateral. So they create fake securities systems, techniques and systems that they can use to generate this false securities that Doug was talking about, this false backing to get yet another mortgage on their property.
Let me give you another word. One more word for Duke. Leverage.
Again, the same sort of thing, only with leverage, you often don't need to own it. You can borrow leverage.
Mm-hmm.
That's believe it or not, folks, that's what my mother does for a living. She's what's called a facilitator. She takes people who have fixed assets and don't have a need to utilize it as a security, lend it to other people who have borrowed securities from a group of people to amass one large amount. And then my mom helps them invest that or borrow against it to go build a hotel or something like that. She's what's known as a facilitator. So there are people out there in our financial marketplace today who on paper are worth billions of dollars, but in reality, everything they have is backed, it's secured by borrowed assets.
Well, here's an interesting. Blue Apple has said they leverage up by rehypothecating the debt, and nothing
Bingo.
could be true. Nothing could be truer. That's an amazing. I mean, these guys, they will take debt that they have on one side of the page and bring it to the other side of the page on a rehypothecation, and they'll take it from here in Canada down into Wall Street. They can rehypothecate it for 30 times. Or if they really want to get dangerous with it, they can rehypothecate it for 300 times on the AIM in London. So that's 1 million up to 300 million, or 1 billion up to 300 billion, or 1 trillion up to 300 trillion.
It's an amazing amount of money. It's mind-boggling, the numbers of zeros on the ends of some of these numbers that people are playing with every day, folks. They're out there playing with it.
And the worst part of it is, and China got caught a couple of years ago. The Chinese decided that they would lend to the Western world copper ingots. And so the Western bankers just said, oh, okay, well, we'll loan against your copper ingots. And they had them in storage facilities. And basically what the Chinese businessmen would do, they go to half a dozen Western banks and they get loans. And then they go down to the AIM and they would leverage those loans, the money that they got, and then they would disappear. And then the bankers would come back and go, wait a minute, we need to go seize the copper. And they go to these bonded warehouse facilities, and there was no copper. So it was nothing more than just this straight up Ponzi.
Yeah.
And the bankers, you would think who were left holding the bag would be like, they're out like billions of dollars. Well, don't forget, they made the money out of thin air. So they weren't out anything. They just tore up the paper and moved on.
That right there in my camera screen is all they need to create money. Right there. That's what they use. There's no gold bars. There's no silver bars. There's 10 little digits right there on the keyboard. There's your new bank balance. Push a couple of buttons.
Well, like you said, securities and bonds have a large part to do with how they create that money out of nothing, right? Although they created with the stroke of a pen, they need something to securitize it, right?
Well, what's interesting, and Blue Apple has made a second statement here, which is really very important, because with the rehypothecation, they actually put insurance on that, and the insurance is called a derivative bet. So they go, not only do now they rehypothecate with leverage up to 300 times. Now they go onto the world stage and put it into the casino of derivatives and start laying bets on, will it default or will it go, or will they be able to pay it off? I mean, it's just one big party for these people. And that's why this whole new Green Deal has nothing to do with the environment, but to bring in new stuff to securitize, rehypothecate, derivatize, and keep the game going. Has nothing to do with saving the world. It has everything to do with saving their world, not ours. To the destruction of our world, they get to save theirs.
Du Bois says our labor is the real currency. That's I agree with that. You made the metaphor, Duke, that they securitize their house and then they look to their flower bed and then they look to their lawn and want to securitize each blade of grass. And I think that's a good metaphor for what's happened to us, the people, right?
Yeah, it's what we've been pushed into. Look at how much debt every household carries. You've got your mortgage because you bought a house you couldn't afford to pay for. You bought a car and you got a payment to make, but it's a car you never had the chance of ever paying for. It was $36,000. Where are you going to have $36,000 extra in your bank? You don't. So you're in debt. You got a credit card, there's debt. You owe on the hydro bill, there's debt. You owe on the gas company bill, there's debt. You're paying interest on them, all of them. And it's how they keep things going. And we, as the end consumer, we run around like crazy. I guarantee you half the people watching this show tonight or when it's done and they're watching it later, half of you out there scramble every month to make a minimum payment on your credit card and a minimum payment on this and a minimum payment on that and cover the car and cover the insurance. And at the end of the month, you got to run to Money Mart and grab a payday loan because you can't make it through until the next paycheck. A large portion of households operate like that. And our entire financial system is operating like that. What does that tell you about what we've been programmed to believe is the proper way to function in this system? We've been lied to. And the system itself is explaining and exemplifying that lie to us.
On a global financial market, isn't that the same? Moreover than just our assets and stuff, but haven't we been securitized as well? Or the corporate fictions that represent us? When you said the blade of grass, I saw that as a good metaphor to the individual people, every man and woman, right?
They can only securitize you after you're dead. If you're ongoing, living, breathing being, because every day that you're alive adds to the birth bond, they can't do anything until you're dead. Once you're dead, they can take your birth bond and then they can hypothecate that and rehypothecate that and leverage that. But until then, because the whole idea is to get you to sign all their documents. So when you go into a bank and you take out a mortgage, you get the mortgage document and then you get the promissory note underneath. And ideally, what they want you to do is sign on the left-hand side, which is where the lender signs, and they don't sign at all. So your signature is creating the money for your mortgage that they're going to charge you interest for and expect to get paid back for. The same thing with credit cards. When you accept the card now, they've made it so much simpler for the bankers. It's called protection of the consumer. Yeah, well, it's protection of the bankers. So as soon as you accept the card, you've entered into the contract. Now, whenever you use the card, it's basically the same as signing it, and you're creating the money. They get paid. They don't pay the vendor where you use the credit card. That comes off of your signature or use of the card. And they keep the money that was originated with the card itself. So the $5,000 credit is theirs. That's theirs. They never give that up. They don't give that to anybody. They just keep that, because every time you use the card, you create more money, and then at the end of every month, you pay it, and they collect even more money. How wonderful is that of them? So no, they don't securitize your bond, your birth bond, until you're dead. It would take it out of usage. In other words, they couldn't then use it because now it's securitized. It's somewhere else. It's no longer within their possession. So when you put leverage onto an instrument, you're actually saying, I need to borrow here. I'm going to give that to you. I need to borrow against that. So that banker gives you the leverage on that, but he retains that instrument, and that instrument is no longer available for you or for anybody else. It's now under a securitization. So how can they use your birth bonds on an ongoing basis if they no longer have possession of them because they've securitized? But once you're dead, holy crap, off we go. Let's go make some real money. So that's why that's why you see a lot of homeless people on the street. That's why you see a lot of people who are sick with cancer, and the cure for cancer is to kill you, because that's the easiest way to get at your birth bonds. And well, they killed Dr. Mayo when he said chemotherapy would never work. Radiation therapy doesn't work. And so they killed him and named a clinic after him. And that's what they do. That's how they kill you when you have cancer. Give you chemotherapy and radiation therapy.
Statistically speaking, chemotherapy and radiation only cures less than 4% of the patients.
Yeah, I heard it was 2.7.
Well, I know
Less
it
than 4.
was quite a bit less than 4. So yes.
Did you know that actually not taking chemotherapy and not taking chemotherapy for cancer patients, the likelihood of them dying of cancer if they change their dietary and did exercise and so forth, lessened by half?
Yes, cancer actually doesn't kill anyone. It's the chemotherapy and radiation that does.
Yeah.
Well, that was always a joke back in the 70s. If cancer doesn't kill you, the chemo will.
Well, the chemo does. It's specific.
Yeah. But
Specifically
back in the
designed to.
70s, when they first came out with it, chemo was a new thing back in the late 70s, and that's what everybody joked about. It was a half-hearted sort of truth joke, right?
Well, and the thing too is that we have the amount of cancers that we have in society, it's ridiculous, and it's all due to the simple fact of the poisons we put in our bodies, and the foods that we're eating are not natural foods. If you go to the third world, I spent some time down in South America, traveling a few years ago, and their food is all fresh daily in the markets. And I had strawberries that I hadn't tasted strawberries in Western world in years. When I was a kid growing up, we used to grow strawberries in the back garden, and boy, they just burst with flavor. So here I am sitting in Peru in this nice little restaurant, and I said, oh, those strawberries look really good. I think I'm going to have a strawberry shortcake. So I had a strawberry shortcake with my coffee, and the strawberries were amazing. They had flavor.
Well,
Unlike
here in Southwest Michigan, we have those types of strawberries. We have strawberry farms. We have cherry farms, apple farms. Actually, Southwest Michigan is, I think, one of the top states in the nation down here for grapes and wine. We have hundreds and hundreds of wineries around here. And the strawberries, when they are in, strawberries, blueberries, cherries, apples, when they are very, very good. A lot better than store-bought, that's for sure.
Well, and I'm talking about the stuff we get out of the hot houses, the greenhouses down in California, down in Mexico, and so forth, where they just grow them for look. They look really nice, but when you bite into them, they're just like flavorless. They're just.
I believe they inject a lot of fruits and vegetables that come from the mega farms down in South America and Southern California. And that I think somehow they are making them look like fruits and vegetables, but they're not.
Ooh, now we got some conspiracy going.
Yeah,
that's interesting. but that is interesting because did you know that down in the States, Heinz ketchup can no longer call it tomato ketchup. They were banned by the FDA from calling Heinz ketchup tomato ketchup. They can call it ketchup, but they can't call it tomato ketchup because it fell below the minimum amount of tomatoes you have to have in the ketchup to call it tomato ketchup. And the minimum amount was less. You had to have 2% or more, which was the 2% was the minimum amount. So Heinz doesn't put 2% of tomatoes in their ketchup. They put less than 2%. Same thing happened with Taco Bell. Taco Bell they said you can no longer call these beef tacos because there's literally no beef in your tacos. So you can't call it beef tacos.
How about Soylent Green, everyone?
Well, how about Kentucky Fried Chicken? Kentucky Fried Chicken can no longer call themselves in the States Kentucky Fried Chicken. They have to call themselves KFC. They call themselves KFC because all of their chicken is lab grown. It's lab grown.
It's actually
meat.
a patent number. It isn't chicken. It's technically it would run under its patent number or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they can't call it Kentucky Fried Chicken anymore. They have to call it KFC.
Do you know how many corporations are being caught nowadays putting, well, there's human DNA in almost a lot of things. A lot of things from Nestle, a lot of fast food corporations have had human DNA found in there. That can anyone say Soylent Green? A lot of people don't even know what that reference is, but I think it was.
Charlton Heston certainly would if he was around today.
Charlton Heston certainly would. Exactly.
Soylent Green is people.
Yes. Soylent Green is food. Wasn't that?
Well, it's being utilized in a large variety of ways, more than just the straight tissues or whatever. I'd say they're using stem cells to artificially sweeten things so they can reduce the amount of actual sugars and,
Well,
tricking our brains into registering higher sugar contents and stuff
there
like
has
that, right?
there has to be some reason. Over 800,000 people in America alone come up missing every single year. 400,000 children every single year. They have to be going somewhere.
It's the aliens.
Is
The aliens are kidnapping them and doing weird bodily probes.
that what you're calling the corporations and governments?
Well,
Absolutely.
they're about as
Is that what they're called?
they're about as alien as you can get. Have you seen Maxine Waters recently?
I have. Nancy Pelosi.
Well,
too.
Oh,
yeah,
Nancy
there you
Pelosi.
go. Like, come on, Bernie Sanders and his hairy legs. If that's not like from
Well,
Alpha
that-
Centauri.
that was Joe Biden. Not
Oh, Joe Biden. I'm sorry, I got the wrong alien. Me bad.
creepy Joe. But
Yeah, but you've seen him on video, though, right, Doug? I mean, he's never done anything wrong. What's wrong?
who's that?
Just like Prince Andrew, he doesn't remember none of this stuff. It never happened.
Selective memory.
Yeah, it always seems to be the move along, folks. There's nothing to see
To
here.
see here, exactly. And that's the problem we have. And it's because we've given up our power to what we believed was a government that was going to take care of us. And the reality is that they did. They took care of us. They emptied our wallets. They emptied our bank accounts. They emptied our lives. And now they want to take them.
Well, they don't have to. I keep saying it over and over and over again. They don't have to keep any of these promises that they tell you on the TV screen.
Mm-hmm.
They do not take an oath to serve and protect any constitution, whether it's the Canadian Constitution or the American Constitution. None of them have ever taken an oath to serve the Constitution or serve the people.
Correct.
Here in America, since at least 1871, probably even going back further than that, they have taken an oath to serve the corporation of Washington, the United States of America, which is that 10 square miles of Washington, D.C. A lot of people don't even know that 10 square miles is sovereign land and has nothing to do with the rest of America.
Well, and it was put inside the Constitution so that you could be a sovereign nation. In other words, you had to your government had to sit on allodial titled land that they were given, but they were given a restriction on the allodial title, 10 square miles, period. They could build forts and armories across where they were needed if the states had agreed with them that they could build these armories, but they were given their 10 square miles. That's what made you sovereign. In 1860, I'll give you a bit of American history lesson. 1860, 1861, there was a guy called Abraham Lincoln. Pretty cool cat, right? He freed the slave.
Yep.
Problem was that
Or did he?
yeah, the problem was that he was not about freeing the slaves. He was about imposing the will of the North on the auspices of the South. They wanted to get cotton cheaper than what the English were paying for it. And they said, no. It costs more to ship it across land than it does to put it on a ship and ship it to England. So why would we sell it to the North at a loss? And so Abraham Lincoln caused the Congress for the Southern states to abandon the Congress, which was very interesting because he did something back then called ending Congress sine die, or without day. And to this day, Congress is ended without day. Every single Congress from 1860, 1861 to 2019. And the reason they do it is because they were able to move the constitutional republic under common law into maritime admiralty, which is a clause within the Constitution. And it's right there. And so what they did in 1871, they did the District of Columbia Act, Organic Act, which reconstituted the DOC from 1803. But the 1803 Act was never repealed. It's still active today. But because in 1871 they did an exact copy of the congressional government, in other words, the House and the Senate were exactly the same as if they were seated de jure, they thought, oh my God, the people catch on and we'll get hung by the nearest yard on. So in 1874, they repealed the 1871 Act. In 1878, they did a brand new District of Columbia Organic Act, and they created the three vessels, or the three heads of the DOC that would be representative of the Senate, the Congress, and the executive, okay? And then they moved the constitutional United States from common law into admiralty maritime jurisdiction, and it's been that way ever since. But the whole idea was that if they ever closed Congress, if they ended it with day, by the way, the proper term is if they ended Congress de jure. Think about that. If they ever did, it would automatically flip it back into common law jurisdiction, or its original jurisdiction of law, which means that all 535 of them would be held for treason against the Republic. So they never closed Congress. It's always ended sine die, not de jure. For you people out there in the listening audience, there's a little Latin for you. De facto, illegal, unlawful, but de jure means with day, or legal and lawful. And that's what would have happened if they closed. And that was, thank you, Abraham Lincoln, because as soon as he ended Congress sine die, he also did something called the LIBOR, or the leader, like leader, LIBOR? No,
Leader.
Leader. Yeah.
I think it's LEDER or AR, leader.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was the very first, but that was actually the very first. What do they do when the president creates executive order? That was the very first executive order. You never had executive orders prior to Lincoln, and that was one of the very first executive orders that they did. Executive order number 1. Anyway, that's your history lesson for America tonight. Thank you for listening. Good night.
Please come and visit Mr. Rogers again.
Can you?
So, Doug,
Can you say?
Okay, sorry.
Can you say we've been deceived, boys and girls?
Oh, we've been lied to for so long and so many times about so many different things. It's not surprising that so many people just don't know what the truth is. They can't see it when it's handed to them because they've forgotten how to recognize it. They've been so inundated with lies generation after generation. They've lost the ability to recognize the truth.
I struggle with this scenario. I believe a lot of people do see the truth and they can discern it, but I think it just blows their paradigm apart, and it goes against their indoctrination that they just disregard it. Call it call us tin hat conspiracy theorists.
Doug, if I can just dip off of topic for a minute. Well, we've got Steve here.
What, and we weren't far enough off yet?
Well, I just want to pick Steve's mind because we're in a unipolar world. Mm-hmm. I want to pick Steve's mind a little bit with his comment just now about, some of the people are awake, a lot of the people are awake, but a large number are still asleep. What's his take on the Investigator General's report coming out this week? What kind of effect is that going to have on A, the ones that are awake, and B, the ones that are still asleep?
What is the synopsis of his report? I tell you the truth, Duke, I don't even pay attention to this stuff. It is nothing but illusion. I told Doug before either of you two even come on, you know, I hope it doesn't go against the narrative, but I don't watch the movies. I call what you see on the TV screen a movie. It is there is proof behind it too. There is proof behind it that it's a movie. I can tell a little story after you explain what you want, but expand on that more.
No, you're absolutely correct, Stephen.
Yeah. You wanted me to comment on the AG report.
Yeah, on the Investigator General's report that's coming out. The other day, President Trump tweeted that AG report out this week, big things happening, or it's going to be big, or something like that.
Well, okay. I mean, I can comment on that. Absolutely. I know it's not going to be the answer you want to hear, because as I just mentioned a minute ago, I don't care about it. It's not real. They don't take an oath. None of them. Not any of the 535 people in Congress, the Senate, and the White House take an oath to serve and protect the Constitution of the United States of America. They take an oath to the corporation of America. It isn't real. It's what Doug calls a de jure government. It's a
de facto government.
De facto government. It's a fallacy. It's an illusion. I don't really care what the man says.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
aren't all governments really an illusion, though? When you break it down to its sole base, I mean, aren't they all just constructs of the mind, really? In the end,
what I told Doug in the beginning, before you two got on, I told him I hope this isn't going to go against the narrative, because I don't pay attention to it. I don't pay attention to any of it. It is an illusion. And he said, I agree with you.
Yeah, so I just go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I'm the same way here in Canada. I don't pay attention to the politics that goes on. As a matter of fact, in the Mythos Canada Facebook group, I won't. One of the rules of posting is you can't post anything about the Canadian government or the provincial governments, because it's worthless to spend your time and invest your time watching these idiots, wasting your time when you can be much better use of the time playing with your kids in the backyard, playing with your dog in the park, playing fetch, reading about what we're talking about at the Mythos Canada, joining in the Constitutional Committee meetings, and help create a constitution for your what I'll just use the easy term, province today. It's not, but it's the easiest one for most people to understand. But don't waste your time watching political theater, because that's all it is. It's kabuki theater, and it's there, and it's designed to waste your time.
Duke and Doug, their only job as of right now, and has been for many, many decades, their only job is to keep this illusion alive, to keep this fallacy of a left-right paradigm alive. That's their only job.
And I got to tell you, Stephen, down in the States, they're doing a really good job of it down there. I'll tell you.
They are.
It's amazing.
We are right now living in 2005's Idiocracy. Judge, what was his first name? The creator of King of the Hill. His last name is Judge.
Oh, Mike Judge.
Yes. We are living in 2005's Idiocracy.
Yeah, that was a great movie. I loved that.
Well, it wasn't supposed to be a documentary, though.
I know, it was supposed to be. It was all done tongue in cheek. Do you ever watch Silicon Valley? He has that the series. The show is ending this year. I think tonight was the final episode. Silicon Valley. You'll pee yourself laughing. It's another Mike Judge. Wonderful. And the actors he found to play the parts in it, jeepers creepers. It's hilarious. It's a play on in Silicon Valley. Okay. Anyway, it's well worth watching if you have the opportunity. It's a great waste of 30
Actually,
minutes.
Steve, I had some company over today, and we were having that very conversation about idiocracy. We were looking at just how politics is played out this day and age, and even how entertainment, what passes as entertainment these days.
Well,
The bar
Cody,
has significantly dropped.
Cody, my first inclination happened in 1996. Bill Clinton's second campaign, his second campaign, all throughout the spring and summer and fall of 1996, when they started having, that was the very first campaign that they had people from the audience at the debates ask the candidate a question. And one of the questions a young girl asked Bill Clinton was, what type of underwear do you wear? Boxers or briefs? And I thought to myself, what is this? They knew about that question beforehand. They vetted her. They let that question go. You know, is that a question that somebody should ask a presidential candidate on a debate? That's where I started to get a bad feeling.
They let her ask if he wears boxers or briefs.
That's right.
Seriously?
Yes, you don't remember that? Doug, you do, don't you?
No, I
I
didn't
remember.
see that.
Yeah, that's on YouTube. Go search it up.
Wow. Handlers left. I can't believe they do that.
Here's the thing. What does that tell you about the presidential candidate? What does that tell you about the whole debating system?
What does that tell you about the political system? Yeah.
Exactly. And so that unto itself.
More importantly, Doug, what does it tell you about the people that are voting? What does it tell you about the public?
Well, look what
I don't care what kind of a president he is. I want to know what kind of underwear he wears.
Look what AOC said. You know, she said, hey, look, the people that voted for me, you know, I might be stupid, but look at all the people that voted for me. I got elected to office are even stupider than I am.
Hey, Doug.
Yep.
Doug, have you ever seen the video of her being interviewed?
Which one?
Well, talking about
I've seen a couple of them.
Talking about the process that she went through. She went to a casting agent. She clearly says this right on video. I went to a casting agent. They were looking for actors to run for Congress, to portray somebody who ran for Congress. I can find that video to you and send it to you. I got it in my history.
I mean, it's like what was it that George Carlin said? He said, you know, I can't remember the exact statement, something along the lines, you know, 50% of the people in the United States, you know, get involved at this. If you think that the average intelligence of the person in the United States is X, just think of this: 50% of them are stupider than that.
Yeah. Yeah, if the average human being is as dumb as a post, 50% of the people are dumber than a post.
Yeah. And so and what I'm finding more and more is that it's not that people are stupid, it's just people don't have time. Their lives are so busy with, and a lot of people today are 2 jobs, a couple of kids, you know, and off to do this, off to do that with the kids, got to do the shopping, got to do the laundry, got to get home, got to get changed, got to start my night job. And I think it has more to do with keeping people busy than keeping them or dumbing them down. Dumbing down just goes along with it. They just don't have time. They have time to follow the news on CNN, sure. But that just is part of the dumbing down of it all. And now you look at the schools and what they teach or don't teach in school. They certainly don't teach critical thinking, because that would be against their, there he is, critical thinker. That would be against their wishes. I mean, my God.
I found that video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one? Oh, the one with AOC.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
I'll pass it to you guys in Skype.
Steve, you can do a screen share if you want, or you can send it to me.
Send it to Ed on Skype and let's play it. Let's play it for our audience.
Right. Sure. I believe this is it. I can't hear because I have my YouTube muted, but I think this should.
You got to give me a few minutes to cue this up, guys.
Sure.
Yeah, we were led to believe with the coming technological advancements that we were going to have more time, that, you know, things were going to become simpler. Technology was going to allow us to be able to do what it took over a week. We'd be able to do in a matter of hours, you know, and we are at that point. You're talking about people being distracted, and I think technology has a large part to do with that, right?
No, you're absolutely correct. Oh, you're outside. Oh, isn't that nice? Is it cold, Cody?
Yeah, not at all. It's really nice, actually.
That's what I'm saying. I see the sky behind you is kind of nice.
Ed, that's in your Skype.
All right, give me a minute to bring it up.
Sure.
Keep going, guys.
Well, and at the end of the day, you know, we're talking tonight a lot about what's going on in the Western world, in the unipolar world. It's gotten so bad, like you say, Stephen, with candidates like AOC, Nancy Pelosi, who won't die, who should have died 20 years ago. My God, they propped her up. It's Weekend at Bernie's with Nancy Pelosi. Maxine, crazy Mad Max, crazy old Mad Max. Diane Pretty Pig from Fine Swine, or whatever they call her down there. You like that name?
I knew Steve would like that name.
I have a lot of American friends, and we have some good chuckles on their politics. And these names, I cannot say I've created them. They were created by my friends in America. And they're actually, some of them are quite good. I had a Jewish friend from Seattle who called her Pretty Pig, Fine Swine. Or
Pretty Pig.
Yeah, Pretty Pig, because she's a fine swine, right? Fine swine. Diane Fine Swine. Or Pretty Pig. But your political circus down there is just that. And it is, we don't have the same good political circus that you guys have. We got Krista Friedland, who's a Malthusian, who wants to, kill us all off. And we got Climate Barbie, who wants to kill us all off. And then we got the failed drama teacher, who wants to kill us all off. But like you guys down there, I mean, did you see Pelosi, what was it, Friday night, blow up?
Yeah, when she lost it on the reporter.
That was hilarious.
Here we go. Ed's going to play this video for us.
Oh, Ed, by the way, that is the correct video. So, yeah, go ahead.
We're not.
I got no sound.
I have no sound either.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't think we're getting sound out over the broadcast.
Ed, you might have to download that instead of grabbing the link.
Yeah, there's Ed. I'm checking my other computer here, and there's no sound going out over my live feed to my channels. There was no sound coming out over that for my OBS system to send back out.
We're not hearing you. You might have to download that.
Are we good now, though, on amongst the five of us?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you now. I think you were muted, Ed.
Okay, Duke, let me try this again.
Yeah. Yeah, my feed is just picking up whatever comes out here, but I used it to confirm whether or not we had audio from that video file, and we didn't.
Do you have a downloading program?
Yeah, but that's going to take some time. Let me see if I can play it within the page again. Maybe because my mic was muted. Give me a second here.
Sure.
Oh, you guys keep going, anyways.
Carry on as you were. Blah, 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 blah.
But as we
We put out.
I wanted to do my Maxine Waters impression and tell people to chase them out of restaurants, hunt them down.
as we get closer and closer to what's coming in the economic system, we have decisions to be made. You guys in the States have the same thing, Stephen, down there. I don't know if you ever heard of team law before. I thought I sent you a link.
Team law.
Team law.
You've sent me a lot of stuff. You sent me a lot of MP3s. I still need to get to. All right, let's try this again.
For nominations, trying to capture the diversity of background and experience of the American electorate, the people that aren't currently represented in office. We got over 10,000 nominations. Out of those 10,000 nominations, we found Alexandria.
Get some backfeed off somebody's audio there. Everyone should
My
mute out
brother
for the
told
duration of the
me
video.
that he had sent my nomination in the summer, but I was like literally working out of a restaurant, and I was like, there's no way.
Her profile is not what you think of as someone who should run for office, right?
I grew up with a really politically engaged and attuned family, and we always were debating politics, talking about things, but we were never involved in the formal structures of politics.
We saw these signs of someone who's willing to sacrifice their own future for the good of others.
I remember some of the moments that I felt really dejected about politics, the extension of the Bush tax cuts in 2010, and seeing that the same people were financing all campaigns. And I was like, what is even the difference of a Democrat and a Republican?
That was the depressing part, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I, like a lot of working people, felt that cynicism, and I understood it very deeply. 2016 represented a re-engagement. That's when I started tuning in more to activism and really getting to the core of these issues. I remember that evening on election day in November. I was really disappointed and really sad, but I was not shocked.
She was at Standing Rock trying to figure out what her next steps are, just like a lot of people were. What do you do when someone like Trump wins?
My experience at Standing Rock was so spiritually transformative. Being there in such an acute moral struggle, you really saw how it was more important than any material thing. And so I walked out of the camp and I was like, what do I do? And then literally that day, I get this email like, this is what you do.
So Izzy, one of the people that was working with us at the time, called, and it was scheduled for 20, 30 minutes, and it went maybe an hour and a half.
Like, you hadn't thought about running for office or anything at that point, right?
No.
You had to do something.
I knew that I had to do something.
You would call people up and kind of walk them through the platform.
We would try to call up folks that were like doing all kinds of amazing stuff, right? Every conversation would have a very awkward pitch at the end. Because we
it's
talk
always
about like,
yeah.
oh, it's so great, you're like saving lives, you're fixing stuff in your community. And so do you want to run for Congress, man?
Yeah. She's like, well, would you be open entering this kind of nomination process? And I was like, sure, because that's not a will you run for Congress?
We felt the passion in her voice. She really wanted to fight for the big thing, and she got a bunch of video calls to meet some of the other candidates that at the time were thinking about running.
There were so many other amazing candidates. The entire time I didn't think I was going to be picked. In my brain, it's like, this isn't going to happen until Izzy called. And she was like, hey, do you want to go to Kentucky in 2 weeks? And I was like, oh.
We invited people to an in-person summit in Kentucky when we started getting serious about who we were going to run.
But Kentucky was, I mean, I found at least for me, that was spiritual.
That was my spiritual. It was.
What happened was just magic. All these people from all over the country, incredible community leaders, talking about similar problems they all face, talking to each other, engaging, pumping each other up, pumping us up, you know.
That was like a super pivotal moment. I felt like I just remember the first day we've created this network of people that put movement first.
Feeling like it was a movement and that it wasn't about me was the most convincing aspect. Being like, oh yeah, I'll do this because it's a bunch of crazy people and this will be fun.
Yeah, because all of you got into this like movement first. That's defined, I mean, your actions since you got elected.
Yeah.
And everyone else is like, man, this is weird. Why are you doing this weird stuff? Well, it's because it's a different, you didn't come in the store.
Yeah. There's so much reaction to the divergence that our actions represent in DC, but really they've been consistent the entire time. It's just that people, yeah, just like the only thing that's changed is that people pay attention now. I've literally been live streaming my life and our political actions since 2016.
Yeah.
I've literally been movement first and accountable to social movements the entire time I've been running for office.
Right.
It's getting most people that change, right? Like you get elected and they're like, okay, campaign's done.
There's a lot of people in the Democratic caucus. When we are courageous enough to just puncture the silence on an issue, they will start to move. Don't people realize that the most powerful position you can be in is when you are not materially attached to a position of power? If you're a one-term Congress member, so what? You can make 10 years worth of change in one term if you're not afraid.
People are saying, you know, we got to be more involved in our democracy. We've got to obviously vote, participate, we go to town halls and go to school board meetings and all this. But I think the other part of that is, you know, we got to start running.
I think we at Justice Democrats have a chance to really transform the Democratic Party. Running in competitive primary elections in Democratic held seats is important.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's
One of the
funny.
things that gets told in order to like settle us down is, I agree with you. We have the same goals. It's great that everyone thinks these issues are important. We need to make them urgent.
And if you got a 97% re-election rate, you get electoral atrophy. This is a reason why I think primaries are important for a party. I think they're important for democracy.
And if everyday people don't feel comfortable in their own skin at the most powerful levels of government, then what's the point?
How we typically run a campaign, you shift.
If anyone thinks this is an ad lib, what she had to say right at the moment and not a prearranged interview, you're smoking better dope than Willie Nelson.
Just be your whole self.
You can run as you are.
Yeah.
You can run for yourself, or you can run as a service to others. By the end of your campaign, no matter what, if you're focused on the right things and running as a service, your community will be more organized, educated, and engaged. It is a huge sacrifice, but that is what this perilous time in our democracy demands of us. With this administration, with the role of money in politics, with how our policy is being hijacked by the industries that profit from the despair of working people.
All hands on deck.
It's all hands on deck for our democracy right now. This country has only ever changed for the better by groups of people that were willing to put everything on the line for a better future. That's how we got the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement. That's how we got the labor movement, queer rights and marriage equality. It didn't happen by people playing it safe. It happened by people putting their whole lives on the line because they understood that this isn't just about us. This is about the generations to come. We have to give it all we got.
We now have proof. Running on a bold vision, running a grassroots campaign, being a part of a larger movement that is bigger than your own personal ambitions can and will succeed.
The House of Representatives is supposed to be the people's house. It's 435 people that are there to represent the needs and the will of the American people.
The only way that we're ever going to be able to change the structures of power in our highest levels of government is if we can get people like you that are closest to the community into the halls of power to talk about these big ideas, a Green New Deal, expanded and improved Medicare for all, ending poverty.
You feel like, hey, why me? You know, I don't have the background experience, never held public office. That's exactly why you should run, right?
Justice Democrats is trying to find people who have some examples of self-sacrifice, of integrity, real service that you put in. more than how much money can you raise or who are the people that you know.
Everybody knows someone in their life that is already an amazing public servant. Nominate that amazing public servant to take their service to the halls of Congress. Give them that nudge. My brother did it for me, and he got me into his wholeness. So now everyone else needs to come along.
Oh, wow.
Holy moly.
My
Holy
hair is
moly.
standing right up everywhere.
How you guys like that, huh?
Yeah.
That is already an
Oops, it's still going or something.
You still running it? Oh my God.
There we go.
Oh my God.
Wow, didn't even want to leave.
It's, you know, you wonder why post-birth abortion isn't legal.
Well, it is in some areas of America. It is.
Oh my God. If I was her parents, I would be so embarrassed.
Hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah. They used to say the best part of her ran down the inside of her mother's leg. I'm sorry, that's absolutely disgusting, but
Well, then I guess it would not be polite for me to say that her mother should have swallowed.
God, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Somebody got a drum roll.
Steve, in the future, we don't like to torture our viewers.
No.
Yeah. I have to admit, though, guys, what I saw there was a pre-staged video shoot. That girl was not talking as if she was at an interview. She was reciting a rehearsed document that had been handed to her. That was a staged interview.
Everything she does in Congress is
staged interview.
pre-staged.
Yeah, like you just listen to the words that she used. Those weren't words that your average human being uses in daily conversation. Okay? She strung together 3-word phrases, like 5 of them in a row in 5 sentences. Boom, 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 boom. It was like reading CBC talking points that they send out to the radio stations every morning. She was hitting. Yeah.
She's a bartender, for God's sake.
Well, no, she's a very well-trained puppet. She's a very well-trained puppet.
That was one of her jobs. Yeah, that was one of her jobs. She was a bartender.
Maybe she took acting lessons from Trudeau when he was an acting coach or a drama teacher.
Maybe.
You know, he's old enough to be her teacher. I'm sorry, Duke. I just try to have fun with
you. And I'm not taking the bait because we're not going to go there. We're keeping this show civilized tonight. I'm not swearing. Please note. This is my 3rd show today. I did a radio show this morning. I did a radio show this afternoon, and now this one tonight. This is the 3rd show in a row. I'm not swearing. I should have like a little halo floating over my head or something.
Yes. Anyway, coming back to the topic, now that we've kind of danced off on the side a little bit, we've looked at AOC, part of the unipolar world, and we understand now why she's pressing the Green New Deal, because it's for securitization for the bankers. That's nothing to do with the environment. And she's dumb enough to be their front person, as is the young Greta, whatever her name, Thunberg. They find these, and I don't take anything away from them. They're pretty faces. Not a lot going on between the ears, which is what they're looking for. I think Greta's parents need to be taken out and given a big bad talking to, because they're the ones. She's a 15-year-old, 16-year-old girl.
I see that. I still see that as part of the movie, Doug.
Yes. Oh no, it is. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
On this whole thing, Stephen. It's entertainment for the masses to keep you busy looking at things that don't matter to them. Because what matters to them you're not gonna. They don't want you to know about. Because if you
Absolutely.
did, you might do something about it. And that's the whole idea of what we're doing here at the Myth, is to expose what they're doing so that we can do something about it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Can I share something with you?
Go for it.
I had a gym membership. This particular gym has since went out of business, but there was a one of the news producers at a local affiliate of CBS happened to have a membership also, and I would see him every single day in the morning. He would do his workouts in the morning, and then he would go in at noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon and do his thing. He happened to mention after they streamed their news, which was like 5 p.m. news or the 6 p.m. news, whatever it happened to be, they pre-record their news, just like a lot of things are pre-recorded, and they are run as live. But he told me whenever they stopped their newscast, they would get a digital file from CBS, the big boys, and the nightly news would run after the local. I'm sure it's probably that way in Canada too. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that's the way it is here in America with NBC, ABC, and CBS. The local affiliates run the national news, and they also run the sitcoms and the dramas after the national news. Everything that you see on a CBS network is not live, and it's not run by the large affiliates. It's all run by the local affiliates. They get digital files. So what that means is everything you see is prepackaged.
Oh, absolutely.
The news or TV programs or TV shows.
Well, we know the TV shows like sitcoms and stuff like that, they're all pre-recorded, but this news stuff, it shouldn't be. It should be running, they might be on delay, but I didn't know it was all pre-recorded. But that just goes to show you that the news is all fake anyway. The only real news is the stuff that they're not showing you.
Exactly right. Yes.
So hopefully we can make the changes we need to make prior to, because I don't think, in all honesty, ladies and gentlemen, I do not believe for a minute that these guys are going to be successful. I think their whole system is going to collapse out from underneath them, and they're going to take us with it. So we have, I wouldn't call it an urgency, but we certainly should be being prepared for that inevitability. There's too many people awake here in Europe and in the United States and Canada for them to force a new fiat currency on us. There really have to be a chaotic event to take place, but not one that would wipe them out. And I think that, with, I go back to 2.8 quadrillion notational value for the derivative. I mean, my God, if that isn't the most super nuclear atomic sun explosion supernova you could ever have in the financial system, I don't know what is.
Can I share something up with you, Doug?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, well, I do have a degree in journalism. It's just a 2-year degree, associate's degree, but it is in journalism studies. I went through the classes, and I started my 3rd year program in the BA program in journalism, but Barack Obama's 2nd term came around, and I just wanted to, get out and do what I'm doing here. I did some research. Move my camera a little bit. That's bugging me a little bit. Anyways, I've actually asked 2 of my professors in journalism classes how the print media works, newspapers and that kind of stuff, magazines. Whenever they run a story, it used to be that a reporter would have to do footwork He would have to hit the streets and talk to people, do his research. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, well, it basically still should be the same way. Nothing really changes. I mean, it might be a ton quicker because of the technology, but you still have to do some legwork in that. I told this to Duke last week. What people don't realize, on September 12th, 2001, virtually every print publication in the world got the same story, got the same narrative on the same day, on the 12th. They did not have to do any legwork. They did not have to do any journalistic work at all. They got it all, and they hit the enter button on a keyboard and popped it out in their newspaper, whether it's the the New York Times or the Washington Post or the LA Times, or I don't know, any Canadian publication. They all got the same story on the same day without any work. So go figure that one out.
Well, wasn't there a movie called Inside Job? I mean,
There may have been, but I haven't seen that.
Look, you know what happened on 9/11 as much as anybody else does. They were done under controlled demolition. How does 47-story building collapse into its own footprint without having a plane hit it, and B, having small garbage can fires going off that were all put out? Yet here it dropped straight into its own footprint. Gee whiz, that's not controlled demolition. Oh heck no, that's magic dust. That's what happened. Unicorns collapsed that one for us.
I also say directed energy weapons were used that day too.
Well, I don't look. I have no idea. Could have been directed energy. Could have been, nanothermite. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't. It wasn't jet fuel coming off of two jets.
And it wasn't Osama bin Laden hiding in a cave in Afghanistan either.
No, he
directing it all from the caves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Doug, I just wanted to touch on something. You said that, that there isn't really a sense of urgency. And I saw some commentary here that, is worth mentioning when you say there isn't a sense of urgency. But you take a look at the moves that the quote-unquote government of Canada has been taking, specifically here in Alberta for quite some time. The militarization of the police, the influx of the military armored units, and the increasing numbers of militarized police that are being deployed within Alberta. That, in conjunction with the new gun legislation, all of these things kind of seem to paint a picture to me, in a way. Generally, when they're looking at disarming people and increasing police force with military equipment and personnel, usually that would be an indication that they intend to do something that they think the people might revolt against, right?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely correct. And it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, as we talked, was it Barry's show this afternoon? We talked about I was stationed up in Winnemucca. I was doing some consulting work for a mining company up outside of Winnemucca, and the Highway 80 that goes there. For 10 days, we watched military transport trucks transport military vehicles down that highway in convoys, tanks, APCs, all kinds of different military equipment for 10 days. Literally hundreds of trucks went down. I was about 2 to 3 weeks later. I was down in Reno, Nevada, and as you're coming into town, they had this big open area where they had put these vehicles. They staged them and then put them onto rail, and then they transport them wherever they went from there on rail. There was about a third of the, little less than half the lot was still there. They were still clearing the vehicles out. So yeah, I mean, that was, gosh almighty, how long ago? Probably 7 years ago now. That took place. So it doesn't surprise me that yes, they'll bring in military vehicles. They'll bring in extra additional police, and they'll paper it over as well. You know, we need this for the rural communities so that they can be protected as well. And basically what they're hedging, and I don't think you're going to do, I honestly don't believe they'll do gun confiscation. That would be the end of them to do that. There's enough people with guns in Alberta that it would turn the tide. Cops, they're not going to go risk their lives to confiscate guns off of, like I say, in the United States, they have patriot organizations down there. Even if you could deploy your own military in the United States to do those collections, those people wouldn't do it because that's their neighbors. And it's the same thing here in Canada. The police, yeah, they might come in from Quebec, but they're still looking at the Albertans as the same as them. They don't want to kill them. They have the same problem. So the reality is that, yes, they might want to give the illusion of building up this military force. To actually pull the trigger and deploy it, it has to be end times at that point. Because it's not, you can't go around hoping to sneak up on gun owners and confiscate their guns. The federal authority will come out with the new gun laws and we're going to confiscate all the guns. And we've now contacted the RCMP in Alberta, and they're going to come out, and those people that don't turn their guns in will simply, we'll simply come out and collect them from them. How many people in Alberta do you see turning their guns in, Cody?
I don't know. I'm sure that the fear would get to quite a few. And without communities being tight-knit and together, if they actually did come to do confiscations, I think they'd be successful. I mean, if you have one farmer and you got a squad of police and you have armored vehicles roll up, do you really think a farmer and his wife and maybe 2 kids are going to fight themselves, up against those odds and that type of equipment? It would literally take communities standing together.
Yes.
No,
saying,
actually,
this isn't happening.
No,
not allowing this to happen to my neighbor.
No, it wouldn't. You know what it would take? It would take 1 out of every 10 gun owners to say, okay, you guys can have this 25-year-old 12-gauge shotgun, but all the rest of my guns are going into a sealed PVC pipe, and they're getting buried out back in the garden beside the turnips. And they're never going to find them. They can't take them if they can't find them.
Oh, yeah.
I guarantee you the vast majority of Canadian gun owners, if the authorities come knocking on their door, they'll hand over 1 gun, but only 1 gun.
Yeah, I know several people who have hidden weapons already in preparation for what they feel is coming.
Well,
a very good friend of mine owns over 50 guns, but he's only got 1 at home. All the rest are way the hell up north in northern Quebec at his hunting camp in a locked safe in his cabin. Out in the bush.
Doug,
you want them? Go get them. You better take a canoe.
Doug and Duke, what is the little? It's almost like a toy BB rifle that they used to. Well, I think they probably still make it, but I think they made them at least probably like the 20s, 30s, 40s, and on up. But
yeah, like an air-powered pellet gun or BB gun.
Yeah, well, it. I mean, even little cock rifles or whatever.
Pellet guns.
Yeah, pellet guns. Yeah, they still make those.
Sure. I don't remember what the brand name is, but I've seen a meme going around Facebook quite a few times, and this is something to the effect: Little Jimmy is digging a hole in his backyard because little Jimmy isn't going to give up his freaking little toy rifle to anybody.
his Daisy BB gun or his Daisy BB gun or marksman pellet gun. Yep.
Look, at the end of the day, they have far more to worry about on the global stage with their economic system collapsing than we have to worry about them coming collecting our guns. and that, if you look at what's going on, and we had a small Did we talk about the overnight? No, that was on I'm sorry, that was on Barry's show this afternoon. I'm now confusing the two. I'm getting a little tired. About what they're pumping into the economy now on a day in, day out basis on the overnights. $120 billion on the overnight lending. And the only lender is the Federal Reserve on Wall Street. That's it. Nobody else is lending. There is no money. The whole thing is coming apart at the seams. You remember remember the cartoons with the old steam engines and all the wheels start blowing off and all the steam starts blowing up? Well, that's what's happening to their financial system. And the wheels are coming off. And it's coming off more and more dramatically every day. The velocity of money is now down to almost zero, which means that on a global scale, the US dollar is not being used for commodities exchanges, for oil. Saudi Arabia signed a contract to sell oil to China in yuan. How's that for amazing? That was done almost 2 months ago now.
Okay, so this say their financial system completely collapses. What kind of effect is that going to have on, for one, our economy? What kind of effect is that going to have to the stability, the access to resources, to food? Okay, all these things. And do you not think that that is going to create a desperate government who knows that they're going to have a population that is suffering as a result?
Absolutely.
You don't think that would create some form of desperation with them and a want to try to
Cody,
maintain
what
their
don't
control?
you understand here? They want us starving. They want us to have no. You laugh about it and you think they're going to be concerned. They're going to be concerned that enough of us aren't dying from starvation within the first 6 months of their collapsing our infrastructure.
Duke and Cody, the Georgia Guidestones has the conspiracy at 2 billion people. They want the world's population at 2 billion people, but the conspiracy.
Oh yeah, they want us to starve. They want civil war. They want it all. You bet. They want us to thin ourselves out. They want us to have our ethnic wars, our all of it.
Well, and
I agree.
And see, here's the thing. If it outright collapses, they don't exist anyways. There will be no government because there'll be no electricity, there'll be no running water, there'll be no cell phones. So there is no government. So you don't have to worry about that. It'll be over at that point.
They'll be inside them bunkers that don't exist.
Well, here's funny. Okay, I got a funny story for you. So
I think that's when those armored cars would start rolling around to people that are known preppers. I think at that point the police would turn into.
How are armored cars going to drive anywhere when there's no fuel and roads are filled with bomb craters? Like, Cody, you keep thinking the traffic lights are going to be there and the streets are going to be there. Go look at historical footage of Frankfurt, Germany, Poland, Austria, France, England. Go look at historical footage. There's not going to be anything there for you to drive on, buddy.
Let me tell you a quick funny story for those down in the U.S. When I was down doing Bamboozled, the Reseeding of the Republic, I used to speak at patriot movements. And we'd always have a little bit of a confab after what's going on. And these guys in a certain state where it was well known that they had these underground cities, had a lot of the patriots had worked within the construction of these underground cities and had kept a lot of the blueprints in the from the working as contractors there. And they got together and they figured out where all the entrances and exits and air filtration systems were. And they all, the water filtration system into these things was, and they figured, okay, well, as soon as these guys go in there, we're just going to cement them in. They'll be in there for their 100 years or 200 years. They open the door, it comes into a wall of concrete. They get out their emergency escape hatches, except they won't open because there's 10 feet of concrete. So they basically are setting up to entomb them when they go in there. And that will be that. They'll be rid of them for good. I thought That's pretty smart, because you got to hire local contractors, right? They signed these papers. They said, oh yeah, we signed all these non-disclosures, and we were supposed to turn in all these blueprint plans for all. But hey, what do they know that we made copies of? They don't. And so these guys are these patriots are not stupid people. They plan. They think, oh well, the government thinks, oh well, we're well prepped. Yeah. Yeah, nothing on these guys. Anyway, I thought it was kind of...
Mute my microphone. We're not the first generation to know that things aren't right. Believe me, other generations ahead of us. Here in Canada, Russell Rogers Smith in the 1920s knew that things weren't right. We're not the first generation, folks. Others have been prepping for what we're going through. All we got to do is slow down, take a look around, and you're going to see where that work has been done for us already.
I'll go back even further than that, Doug. The 1880s, the late 1880s in the New England area, many people complained to their local governments and to anyone who would listen. They were starting to introduce the public education system, and the people told the newspapers and their local politicians, "We don't want anything to do with your public education. All you're going to do is take our children, brainwash them, and turn them against us." Back in the late 1880s.
I remember that. I was in Massachusetts, wasn't it?
Yeah, up there in New England. Yes.
Yeah, big uprising against that. But the whole idea of what we're trying to do at the Myth is educate people. And I said this time and time again: you can't force people to learn something at the rate other people are learning it. Everybody learns at a different rate. You give them the information. It takes them time to assimilate the information. But the whole idea is those that do learn shall pass that information on in their communities, to their families, to their friends, etc., and allow them to assimilate the information. But it's that old adage: you can take a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink it. You can scream at people, "Hey, we need to make a constitution," and those people are looking at you going, "Yeah, okay, what about the one in Ottawa? What's wrong with that?" "Well, that doesn't exist." Well, what do you mean it doesn't exist? How come? And so that's what you're going to wind up with. You're going to wind up with a whole bunch of people that have no clue. So they have to have a clue in order to get things done. And you can't tell people to write a constitution when, first of all, they don't know why they need to, or even how to, for that matter. But why do they need to? I've talked to people here in Toronto, and there are a lot of them. We have like 4 million people in the GTA. And, I've spoken to them, and they think I'm from bloody planet Mars when I talk about how, Canada never confederated. What do you mean it never confederated? Sure it did. How there is no constitution. It's a photocopy in the archives. And no, it's not. We have a constitution. And people argue. They don't want to listen. Some of them do. But that's what I'm talking about when I talk about people learn at a different rate. Some people go, "Wow, that's amazing. Where can I find more information?" Other people go, "You're freaking nuts," and walk away. They'll come back now that I planted the seed. But that's what we have to do. We're really here just nothing more than messengers, Johnny Appleseeds, planting seeds. And whether we see the fruition of that in our lifetimes, which I believe we will, I think that we'll probably see it happen. I think we can reach critical mass early next year or so, because it's going to start getting a lot worse economically.
Sadly, that's what it's going to take.
Well, that's what we need. I don't want a crisis, but a crisis is what's necessary to wake the people up, and that's what we're going to. And the only thing that we need to do at the Mythos Canada is be prepared by making sure that enough people have learned why we need to do this. Not what we need to do, but why we need to do what we need to do. Otherwise, it's people running around with like chickens with their head cut off. Nobody has any direction. Nobody has any leaders. And we have to empower the people. And through that empowerment, leaders will come up from them. And then they will be able to make the proper decisions. I mean, we have world-changing events here that we can do here on the landmass commonly known as Canada. We can move into the future and join the multipolar world and not be this big smoking crater in the ground known as the unipolar world. The United States, there's a group down there, and I mentioned Team Law. Team Law is all about reseeding the republic, and they've been doing it now for 16 years. Eric Madsen has been at teaching people how to reseed the republic. And it's for 15 years he's been doing this. It's not hit critical mass, but there's enough people in there that have been teaching their communities, et cetera, et cetera. And
what's his name?
I'm sorry?
So what's his name?
Eric Madsen, Madsen or SON. He's at teamlaw.org. You can go onto teamlaw.org or .net, I think it is. I can't remember. Gosh, it's been a while since I've done this. I was doing Bamboozled, the Reseeding of the Republic, a documentary film that actually had that as the solution. We were teaching, the first 2/3 of the movie was teaching the history of the United States and what happened. And that's why I was able to recite, 1861, blah, 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 on sign die and all that other stuff, because that was all part of Bamboozle. But I found a solution by meeting one of the reseated governors. I think it was in Virginia, under the reseeding of the Republic, and he turned me on to Eric Madsen at Team Law, where I was able to get onto that website. Hang on a minute. What I'm going to do is I'll just bring it up here, and I'll send it to you in the chat.
Can you pass me that documentary?
Which documentary?
The one you just spoke of.
Yeah, I couldn't get it finished. They kicked me out. I was politely asked to leave the United States.
Yes, Bamboozle the Republic never made it to fruition.
No, Bamboozled the Reseeding of the Republic.
Reseeding of the Republic.
Never made it because the George Bush Jr. White House made sure that I left the country. They certainly did not like me.
Nice guy he was.
Well, and Karl Rove, he was a nice enough guy. He invited me for dinner at the White House. Not kidding. I got invited by Karl Rove to the White House for dinner.
As long as you didn't go hunting with Dick Cheney, you might have been good.
Yeah, I would. That's terrible. Oh, you're just nasty. Hang on a minute. Let me get it up here for you. Okay, I'll send it to. There you go. There you go, Steve. I'm going to put it on your. First, I'll put it into your Skype chat so you can see it, and then I'm going to put it up in the YouTube chat so that other people. This is Team Law. And these guys, they talk about land patents and et cetera, et cetera. It's a really good site. If you're an American, this is a really good site. He has a history lesson up there for you.
There are ways to combat the system. I helped another friend interview a man named Paul Cienfuegos about 6 years back. He's actually been going around the country, North America, and Canada. He is teaching communities how to take their power back and run off the big mega corporations. He's stopped quite a few. He's stopped quite a few communities from being fracked or fracking, whatever you want to call it. He's stopped some of the mega farms into coming into small communities. He's stopped what's called eminent domain in some areas. There is a way to do it, and he teaches people how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are in a much better position when it comes to land in the United States, because all land in the United States is under land patent. And one of the things that Eric and his people on Team Law teach people to do is to reclaim and update the land patent that their property sits on, and claim allodial title as they have the right to do. And it's very interesting because even your government in the United States, under common law, has eminent domain. It doesn't have eminent domain under Admiralty Maritime, which is where it is today. And so,
Correct.
yes, you can. Here in Canada, it's super simple. The Parliament buildings that you would think the government of Canada owns actually belong to the province, and they pay rent of $2.7 million a year. They can't claim eminent domain. The Queen of Canada, which was constituted in 1952 by the illegal and unlawful government at that time, and then she declared herself Queen of Canada, has no land under her feet, and she can't claim eminent domain either. The only reason that these things go on is because people have never been informed as to what's really gone on here. And that's the whole idea of what we're doing at the Myth, is teaching them that. That was my whole idea when I was down in the States with Bamboo, so the Receding as a Republic, was to teach the American people to rise up against that tyranny. And you don't need to do it with a gun. You could do it with the point of a pen, because it's all you're doing down there is taking it back.
The pen is mightier than the sword.
Exactly. And all we do here in Canada, we had the public right to seat a de jure federal authority in 1931. We had the right to do that. But no, nothing changed. So 1982 came along with the Maritime Incorporation. Over the next few years after that, the provinces became subcorporations of the Maritime Incorporation, Government of Canada. And now we have to go through the process of seating de jure governments in all the provinces and territories. And then if we so choose to, at that point, we can confederate a federal authority. But we can do it with the point of a pen. We don't need guns.
I'm kind of glad that we didn't then, and we have the opportunity to now. Now that we have the interconnection of the internet and technology and the spreading of information en masse to the level that it is today. I see a lot of people commenting on the YouTube channel that I know, and they're strictly heavy anarchists, right? And I agree a lot with those perspectives. I'm not going to say that I'm wholly that, because I know there needs to be some type of structure, because the general population at large can be dangerous. But this goes back to the whole idea of government being a construct of the mind, right? And I think what appeals to me mostly out of this whole proposition that is being made by these constitutional conventions in the Myth is Canada is the education of the truth of the legal pitfalls and encumbrances that we've been living with and completely unaware of. You know, the fact that people within these movements are pushing for a constitution that first and foremost protects the unalienable rights of men and women, you know, and then structuring a government around those ideals. That to me, I think is what is the most appealing, for sure.
Well, Doug, Duke, are you guys about done here, or?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the time, and I want to thank everybody for coming in tonight. Cody, thank you. I saw your kids in the background wanting, hey, where's my dad? I need to go to bed. I need to see my dad. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, Cody is a new father. What was it, 7 pound? How big?
7 pounds, 9 ounces, 7'9".
10 fingers, 10 toes, bouncing baby boy. Good for you. Thank you for coming in tonight. Duke Willis.
7 pounds, Cody. Was he born wearing a 3-piece suit?
No.
That's not terribly big, Duke.
Why did I lose?
No,
now I
it's
got
not
no
that big.
audio. I can't hear you guys. What happened, Ed?
Well, we're saying
Ed
good night.
came
Duke.
in and I lost my audio.
Well, we're saying good night, Duke. to everybody, and I figured I
We
would
can
say
hear
good
you.
night. Yep.
It's not on my end, Duke.
We can hear you, Duke.
You're good on my end, Duke.
You did something.
Good night, Duke.
Good night, Duke. Say good night, Chrissy.
Thank you, Stephen, for coming in.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you.
Nice to meet you, Steve.
Thank you, Cody. Good to meet you too.
And for the audience, thank you for showing up. Much appreciated. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope it was informative for you, as it is for all of us. Until next time. Ed seems to think that we should do another one next weekend. And so he has tasked me to put together a new show for next weekend. I don't know. We'll see. My time might be. Until then, thank you very much, everybody. Good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining. And please share.
Absolutely.
Oh, Duke's got something up there.